legends, I hope you're all fantastic. Today we're looking at 5 killer tones with this mighty little beast on my lap, the Boogie Mark IV. The entire Mark series is certainly one of the most influential and important amplifier designs in the history of, so-called high gain amplifiers for a generation of guitarists like myself who grew up in the mid 2000s. Most of us associate this as like the thrash metal amp or, the Dream Theater style amp where you can get these ridiculous levels of gain while still retaining clarity and definition and tightness. Metallica, Lamb of God, like I said, Dream Theater. So many other bands have made amazing use of these particular amps for those tones, but for a previous generation of players, boogies were synonymous with, the so-called singing, sustaining mid-range sound of players like Carlos Santana or Larry Carlton. They were used by so many influential 80s session players as well. Basically, you can play any style of music you like with a boogie and morph this thing to be musically appropriate, provided you know how it works. And hopefully I'll shed a little bit of light on that with these examples. We're going to start out on rhythm channel number 1, which is, I guess, the so-called clean channel, but to me it's more the like Fender voice channel, the kind of traditional clean guitar amplifier thing, which actually kind of gets a bit gritty pretty quickly. So we're going to use it with the gain control all the way up. I'm going to start around, bass 3, 4, mids 5 or 6, treble a little bit higher, tweed power mode and class A operation on the back. I'm going to use the single coil mode on my PRS mirror, and we're jamming over a little track by Backing Tracks by Tim. I'll put a link in the video description to the track. Let's hear this first example. On that lovely touch-sensitive clean sound, I'm going to skip over to the lead channel, and I want to go for more of that, Santana meets Larry Carlton kind of thing. Not that I can play like either of those players, but basically we're using the lead channel with the mid-range and bass higher than you would go for a kind of chugga-chugga guitar sound, and with the graphic EQ doing this instead of this. That's a good look, isn't it? Doing that. And that's how I feel about my boogies. A really, really fun sound. Again, a really, really influential sound. I'm using a 335 from the 70s that only has 5 strings on it because I haven't changed the strings probably for about a year, but it still sounds really, really good. And this kind of sound normally gets associated with, so-called Dumble style amps, but the Mark series do it really well. Touch sensitive, lots of sustain. You can play around with your volume control and your tone controls if you want to do that. Play around with your pick articulations, and the amp follows you. And it is really, really unforgiving. I had more takes at this little jam than anything else on this particular video, so I hope you enjoy it. Let's hear it. let's do the opposite of that kind of smooth, creamy tone. Rhythm channel number 2, which is probably the overlooked mode on the Mark IV. And we're just gonna set it up for some rock and roll crunch. Very different to a Marshall style thing though. Like, you can get a similar like texture out of it, but it has a very different feel. It's not squishy and brown like a Marshall. It still has that signature boogie dryness and the kind of percussive pick attack, but it is very sensitive to your playing dynamics. This is going to be a short example, but pay attention in the verse where I start picking a little bit softer, and then when I dig in a bit harder, how well the amp tracks with that. We're on the full power mode now, and I've got the Class A mode off, so it's on so-called simulclass operation. Let's go. For the classic stuff, the reason I bought this amp, we're going to start with my JP7 in drop A, playing a little section from a Ragdoll song called Rust. Basically, the classic settings on here: V-shape graphic EQ. I've got the 2 gain controls on here wound all the way up. The bass control is almost at 0. The mid control is quite low, it's at 2, but again, those controls are pre-gain, so they're really just kind of shaping the texture of your gain. And one reason metal players love these amps is the ability to basically cut bass before the gain section. The same way if you were using something like a 5150 and you boosted it with a tube screamer with the drive at 0 and the level all the way up. Basically what you're doing there is just cutting a bunch of bass before the gain stage. And well, we can do that with the Boogie without having to use an overdrive pedal. It's a really addictive sound. It feels amazing to play. And you know, if you like high gain, you already know what this does, but I've purposefully dialed this in with just a little bit of extra kind of scuzz in the low end to show you that it can be a little bit more woolly, kind of like a rectifier, and bottom heavy. You can definitely make this a lot tighter than this example, but this is what it sounds like. So if you take that sound, you add even more gain to it, and you use the pull fat control on, what is it? I think it's on this little control here. So the input drive control on the lead channel, you just get the thickest, creamiest lead sound. This is my happy place as a guitar player, and I'm going to play you all out with this particular example. I hope you all really enjoyed the video and the kind of range of tones that we got here. If you use a Mark series amp of any variety, please let me know in the comments. Let me know what you got. Let me know what you like to use it with, what guitar you like to play it with, if you run pedals into it. When I play them, they just kind of make me happy. And at the end of the day, that's what gear is all about. So enjoy this last example. I hope you enjoyed this episode of 5 Killer Tones. Have a great day. I'll see you all next time. Cheers.